The rain hammered down on the dark Moscow alley as Nikolai Volkov stepped out of his black Mercedes. His perfectly tailored suit was already getting wet, but he didn't care. He'd gotten the call that someone was causing trouble in his territory. What he didn't expect was to find a young woman huddled against the brick wall, her dress torn, mascara streaming down her face as she sobbed into her knees. Nikolai froze. He'd seen violence, death, betrayal, but something about her broken form stirred something he thought he'd buried years ago. "Hey," he said softly, approaching slowly. "Are you hurt?" She looked up, her green eyes wide with terror. She scrambled backward, hitting the wall. "Stay away from me," she cried in English-accented Russian. Nikolai held up his hands. "I'm not going to hurt you." He crouched down, keeping his distance. His jaw tightened as he noticed the bruises forming on her arms, the ripped sleeve of her dress. His voice dropped to something deadly. "Who touched you?" She shook her head frantically, fresh tears spilling over. "Please just leave me alone. Not until you tell me who did this." There was steel in his voice now. "I own this part of the city. No one gets hurt here without answering to me." You're Volkov?" Her voice trembled. "The Mafia boss?" "Nikolai Volkov. And you are?" "Emma," she whispered. "Emma Carter. I was a translator at the American Embassy." "Was?" She laughed bitterly. "Not anymore. Not after tonight." Nikolai stood and shrugged off his jacket, draping it over her shoulders despite her flinch. "Tell me what happened, Emma." She pulled the jacket tighter, her voice barely audible. "There's a man. Viktor Morozov. He works for the embassy, but he's been selling information. I found out about it 3 weeks ago." Nikolai's eyes narrowed. Morozov. He knew that name. A mid-level bureaucrat with expensive tastes. "I threatened to report him," Emma continued. "Tonight, he cornered me after a diplomatic reception. He said if I talked I'd disappear. Then her voice broke. He grabbed me, pushed me into his car. I managed to escape when we stopped at a light. I ran and ended up here." "Did he hurt you?" Nikolai's voice was ice. "He tried. I fought back. But he's not going to stop. He has connections, money, power." "Not more than me." Nikolai pulled out his phone. "Dmitri, I need a location on Viktor Morozov. Now." He paused. "And send a car to my location. We have a guest who needs protection." "No." Emma grabbed his arm. "You don't understand. If you get involved, it'll start a war. Morozov has ties to the Chechen syndicate. They've been trying to move into your territory for months." Nikolai's smile was razor-sharp. "Let them try." A black SUV pulled up moments later. Nikolai helped Emma to her feet. "You're coming with me. You'll be safe at my estate." "I can't just." "You can and you will. Unless you'd prefer to wait here for Morozov to send his men back to finish what he started?" Emma looked at the dark alley, then at Nikolai's outstretched hand. She took it. Nikolai's estate was a fortress disguised as a mansion. High walls, security cameras, armed guards at every entrance. Emma stood in the marble foyer, feeling completely out of place in her torn dress and borrowed jacket. "Irina," Nikolai called out. An older woman appeared, her face softening when she saw Emma. "Oh, child. Let's get you cleaned up." As Irina led Emma away, Nikolai's second-in-command, Dmitri, approached. "Boss, we found Morozov. He's at his apartment. But there's a problem." "What problem?" "He's requested a meeting with the Chechen boss, Aslan Kadyrov. Tonight." Nikolai's jaw clenched. "He's making his move. He thinks if he aligns with the Chechens before I can touch him, he'll be untouchable." "What do?" "We crash their meeting." Upstairs, Emma stood in a guest room that was bigger than her entire apartment. She'd showered and changed into clothes Irina had provided, simple but elegant. Her hands were still shaking. A knock at the door made her jump. "It's me," Nikolai's voice came through. "May I come in?" She opened the door. He'd changed too, into dark jeans and a black shirt. Somehow he looked even more dangerous this way. "We need to talk," he said, stepping inside. "Morozov is meeting with the Chechen syndicate tonight. They're planning something big and you're the leverage." "What do you mean?" "They want to force the American embassy to turn a blind eye to their operations. You're the proof of their power, an embassy employee who disappeared without consequences." Emma felt sick. "So what happens to me?" Nikolai moved closer. "Nothing. Because I'm going to end this tonight. But I need to know, do you have proof of Morozov's dealings?" She nodded slowly. "I copied files before he caught me. They're hidden in my apartment." Then that's where we're going first. Emma's apartment building looked quiet, but Nikolai's trained eyes caught the man in the parked car, the shadow on the roof across the street. They're watching, he murmured. How do we get in? Through the service entrance. I know the building superintendent, he owes me a favor. They slipped in through the basement, moving silently up the service stairs. Emma's apartment was on the 4th floor. Her hands trembled as she unlocked the door. The apartment had been ransacked. Drawers pulled out, cushions torn, books scattered everywhere. They've already been here, Emma whispered, her heart sinking. Where did you hide it? She moved to the kitchen, pulling out the refrigerator. Behind it, taped to the wall, was a small USB drive. My brother was paranoid about cybersecurity. He taught me to hide things in plain sight, somewhere people would have to make noise or leave evidence of searching. Smart. Nikolai pocketed the drive. Now The door burst open. 3 men rushed in, guns drawn. Nikolai moved like lightning. He threw Emma behind the kitchen counter as he engaged the first attacker, disarming him with brutal efficiency. The second man fired, but Nikolai had already rolled, coming up with the first man's gun. 2 shots. 2 bodies dropped. The third man grabbed Emma, pulling her up as a shield, his gun pressed to her temple. Drop it, Volkov, or she dies. Emma's eyes met Nikolai's. She saw something in them, a calculation, a promise. Okay, Nikolai said calmly, lowering his weapon. Let her go. Take me instead. You think I'm stupid? Boss wants her alive. You not so much. Then you have a problem, Emma said suddenly. She stomped hard on his instep and threw her head back, catching him in the nose. It was enough. Nikolai's shot was perfect. The man dropped and Emma stumbled forward into Nikolai's arms. Are you hurt? His hands moved over her, checking for injuries. I'm okay. We need to go. Not yet. Nikolai was already on his phone. Dmitri, I need you at Emma's apartment. Bring the cleaners. And tell Sergei to prepare for war, we're moving on the Chechens tonight. The warehouse district was desolate at night. Inside an old shipping warehouse, Viktor Morozov sat across from Aslan Kadyrov, the Chechen crime lord, and his lieutenants. So, Aslan said, lighting a cigar. You promise us access to diplomatic channels, immunity for our shipments, and all we have to do is help you eliminate one woman? She's more than just one woman, Viktor said nervously. She's a threat to both of us. Once Volkov realizes she's valuable, he'll use her against us. Volkov. Aslan spat the name. That Georgian dog has held Moscow long enough. Maybe it's time for new management. The warehouse doors exploded inward. Nikolai walked through the smoke, flanked by 20 armed men. Behind him, Emma stood with Dmitri, her heart pounding. Having a party without me? Nikolai said coldly. How rude. Viktor went pale. Volkov, I can explain. Explain what? How you assaulted an innocent woman. How you're selling out your country. Or how you're trying to start a war in my city. Aslan stood slowly. Bold of you to come here, Volkov. You're outnumbered. Am I? Nikolai smiled. Red laser sights appeared on every Chechen in the room. Snipers. Rooftop positions. Aslan's jaw tightened. What do you want? Justice. Nikolai pulled out the USB drive. This contains proof of Morozov's treason. Enough to send him to a Russian prison for life. Or, he looked at Emma. We can hand it to the Americans. Let them deal with their traitor. And what about us? Aslan demanded. You have 2 choices. Leave Moscow tonight and never come back. Or stay and find out why everyone in this city knows not to cross me. The tension was suffocating. Emma could barely breathe. Finally, Aslan laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. You've got balls, Volkov. Fine. Moscow is yours. But this isn't over. Yes, Nikolai said quietly. It is. He nodded to his men. In seconds, the Chechens were disarmed and escorted out. Viktor tried to run, but Dmitri caught him, forcing him to his knees. Please, Viktor begged. I'll do anything. You should have thought of that before you touched her. Nikolai looked at Emma. It's your choice. Russian justice or American. Emma stepped forward, looking down at the man who'd hurt her. Send him to the Americans. Let him face everything he's done in front of the world. Nikolai nodded. Make the call. 3 weeks later, Emma stood on the balcony of Nikolai's estate, watching the sunset paint Moscow gold and red. Viktor Morozov was awaiting trial in American custody, facing life in prison. The Chechen syndicate had retreated. And somehow, impossibly, Emma was still here. You should be at the embassy celebrating, Nikolai said, joining her with 2 glasses of wine. They offered me my job back. Full reinstatement, promotion, the works. She took the glass. I turned it down. His eyebrows rose. Why? Because I realized something that night in the alley. I'd been living half a life, playing it safe, following rules. And look where it got me. She turned to face him. You saved me, Nikolai. Not just from Morozov, but from being afraid. You saved yourself. I just provided backup. She laughed. Is that what you call a small army? In my line of work? Yes. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment. So what will you do now? He asked. I've been offered a position as a private translator. Wealthy clients, interesting work. Dangerous sometimes, but... She met his eyes. I've learned I can handle dangerous. Emma? His voice was serious now. You should know, being around me, being in my world, it's not safe. There will always be another Morozov, another Kadyrov. I know. She set down her glass. But here's what I've learned about you, Nikolai Volkov. You're called a monster, a criminal, a ruthless mafia boss. But you stopped to help a stranger crying in an alley. You protected me when you had nothing to gain. You gave me the choice of what to do with my attacker instead of just handling it your way. Emma? I'm not finished. She stepped closer. You scare me. But you also make me feel safer than I've ever felt. And maybe that makes me crazy, but I don't care anymore. Nikolai cupped her face gently, his thumb brushing away at tears she hadn't realized had fallen. You deserve someone better. Someone clean. I don't want clean. I want real. I want someone who sees me, all of me, and doesn't look away. Then you're really crazy, he murmured, but he was smiling. Probably. She smiled back. So what do you say? Think you can handle having someone around who isn't afraid to call you out? That depends. Think you can handle the fact that I'll probably always be overprotective? That I'll want to destroy anyone who even looks at you wrong? I think I can live with that. He kissed her then, soft and sweet and full of promise. When they broke apart, the sun had fully set, and Moscow glittered below them like a field of stars. So, Emma said, tell me about this translator position. Who's the wealthy client? Nikolai laughed, a real, genuine laugh that transformed his entire face. You're looking at him. I need someone I can trust. Someone smart, brave, and who knows how to hide USB drives behind refrigerators. Well, when you put it that way, how can I refuse? He pulled her close, and for the first time in years, Nikolai Volkov felt something he thought he'd lost forever: hope. Welcome to my world, Emma Carter. Our world, she corrected, laying her head on his chest. Our world now. And as the lights of Moscow twinkled below, 2 broken souls found something neither expected to find in the darkness: a chance at happiness, born from the most unlikely meeting in a rain-soaked alley.